RotoGrinders Daily Fantasy Podcasts are presented to you by Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports. This week 16, make sure you're heading over to Yahoo again if you are playing paid-for-play fantasy sports, because they've got their $1 million baller tournament back, and they also ran back the guaranteed overlay. Last week was $250,000. They're doing it again. That's over $500,000 that they are adding to the prize pool over the last 2 weeks. If you don't know what overlay means, what they're doing is $750,000 in entries is the max they can take, and they're going to be paying out $1 million. The best value in DFS is happening right now at Yahoo Sports Daily Fantasy. Check them out, rotogrinders.com/Yahoo. Use that promo code GRINDERS30 for a $30 matching deposit bonus on that first deposit. Make sure you're playing over there this week 16. It's Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the DFS OGs podcast right here on RotoGrinders.com. I am your host, Chris Beermaker Stan Prince, joined as always by my fellow OGs here, talking everything week 16. Boys, we're running out of time here to play some full weeks of DFS, but let me bring in the boys, Head Chopper, Notorious. Guys, how we doing? Chop, we'll get started with you.
Doing well. Looking at my calendar here, I'm guessing this is the next time we do a show is it's already going to be Christmas. I mean, this is crazy. Our last show before Christmas. This is amazing, man. It's just flying by. So yeah, I'm doing pretty good and anxious to get these last 2 weeks under our belt.
Absolutely. Happy holidays, everybody out there. Yeah, like you said, next week will be right in the wheelhouse of Christmas, and that day of NBA, man, that's going to be fun. But we're here to talk football. Noto, how we doing, brother?
Yeah, dare I say I had a profitable week 15.
Nice.
And we usually record this on Tuesdays, so hopefully the families don't mind that we record for 2 hours on Christmas.
Yeah, they won't mind. Kids can wait. We're not going to open presents until we're done recording the OGs. You've got to have some priorities here. But we are back, as always, to talk about everything week 16. Going to switch it up a little bit here this week. We're going to cover the 2 Saturday games. We have an $800,000 tournament over on DraftKings covering those 2 games. No Thursday night. We're done with Thursday for the season. And then we'll give you analysis on the first 6 games on the main slate. And then in part 2, we will cover the remaining 8 games. So we'll divide things up evenly here. Chop, how was your week 15 before we get into things here in week 16? How'd it go?
Well, thanks to the Yahoo overlay, I actually made some money this week. That's about it. But yeah, I mean, it pulled me out. It made up for the DraftKings and FanDuel small losses, but it's all good. I mean, I know Notorious had a good week, and I know why he had a good week, and it's probably the same reason I had a very average week, is because of these freaking 60% guys who go off, man. The Joe Mixons and the Dalvin Cooks. When that happens, I'm probably in a little bit of trouble, but it's all good. We'll get through it.
Yeah, that chalk hits, and if you're a contrarian player, that's not what you want to see. So, those guys definitely were big. Speaking of Yahoo, our friends are running it back. Another $1 million tournament, another guaranteed overlay in this one. So, $100,000 at first, $10 buy-in, $20 buy-in, 10 max entry on that $1 million tournament. So let's make sure we get over there and support them. And if you play a little NBA, they're doing the same with NBA. So make sure you get over and check out Yahoo. We'll reference some of their pricing here throughout the show. All right, guys, let's get started with this Saturday slate. We got one good game. We got one not so good game. So we'll knock out the not so good here. We got Washington traveling to Tennessee. Chop. Derrick Henry, let's start there, because it's a guy that I just, I'm not believing it. I saw a 99-yard run. I'm still not going to play him. I didn't play him again last week, and that hurt. Is he just a must-play at this point at home against Washington?
Oh, man. This is one of those things where this guy could very well jump up and bite us this week, just based on the history he's had. But, I mean, yeah, it's a 2-game slate. It's going to be tough to get away from him on this 2-game slate. So he's borderline. But then again, last week against Washington, I thought Fournette was a must-play, and that didn't quite work out like that. So I don't know, man. You could do whatever. I mean, I'm sure you could with Melvin. We'll get into the next game. Melvin Gordon should be back. So there's going to be other running backs on the slate you could play if you really wanted to break away from him. But At this point, I got to think the way Washington should be collapsing on defense, and Tennessee starting to feed him a little bit more. With only 2 games, if this was a full slate, maybe I could fade him. But with only 2 games on the board, yeah, he's borderline must play here. And for Tennessee, he might be the only one. I mean, nothing else on their offense really looks very appealing right now. So he's there, and he's the guy I'd load up on.
I mean, 33 carries last week. I mean, Deion Lewis is basically relegated to a handful of carries, handful of targets, but is intriguing at 4,600 here. Now, the problem, Derek, is big favorites, but a very small total in this game. So I think everybody will be looking at Baltimore and the Chargers, but are there any plays that you can dig out of this one outside of Derrick Henry? Who else is sticking out here? Titans and Redskins.
Yeah, I was going to say Deion Lewis is the ultimate leverage play here, but I don't think I can do it. I mean, we saw Derrick Henry play 70% of the snaps last week. That was kind of my concern after his big game against the Jaguars, is that Deion Lewis still outsnapped him in that game. But this is the time of year when Henry seems to turn it on. Had those big games last year towards the end of the year, including that playoff game. So, yeah, I'm on board Henry. I mean, 50 rushes, 408 yards, and 6 touchdowns in 2 games. That's pretty incredible. Washington 25th in DVOA against the run. So, yeah, I think it's a spot where you just you play Henry, you load him up, you maybe take a shot on the Titans defense as a sort of a correlation play there. And then you build from there. I think I definitely like the other game a little bit more.
Any interest in the Washington side? Everyone kind of passed on it. Any Josh Johnson, anything there? Or are we just fading Washington?
I mean, so I played Vernon Davis last week in cash, which ended up being a pretty good play. He got 3 points, which was 3 more than a lot of the other tight ends last week. But he ended up, running a lot of routes. We saw, I can't remember the guy, some sprinkle guy ended up catching the touchdown. Yeah. So I don't know. If Jordan Reed's out, I'll probably go back to Vernon Davis. But that's about it for me.
Chop, anything to add on this game before we move on?
No, if this was on the regular slate, I would have no interest in any of these Redskins. You may have to force in a Vernon Davis or Jordan Reed, or you may have to force them in because it's only 2 games. But man, no, they just don't interest me.
Let's pour one out for the tight end position while we're here. I mean, it was a disaster. If you had Ebron, if you had Gronk, it was almost whoever you had. Even this Ferkser character that a lot of people were talking about in Tennessee, big old fat bagel. So tight end, it's kind of been the story of the season. So I don't mind the Vernon Davis call. Let's get to some better football here, Derek. Let's go to Baltimore and the Chargers, the nightcap for us on Saturday night. Should be an amazing game. Total, it's not one of those huge totals. 2 pretty good defenses here. How do we attack this one? Because this is the one everyone's going to be playing. Maybe get some days to differentiate from everybody else in the field. What are you looking at here?
Yeah, we've seen a limited ceiling from Lamar Jackson, but he offers a really high floor, which is something that we should covet in a 2-game slate like this one, especially given the lack of quarterback options. Rivers has the toughest matchup of the 4, and then we don't really want to target the 2 quarterbacks in the other game. So I do think Lamar Jackson is going to be popular, and he's kind of matchup proof or game flow proof, if you will. If they're playing from ahead, he's obviously going to get a lot of rushing attempts. If they're playing from behind, maybe he will air it out a little bit more. So he's going to be my favorite quarterback in this slate. As far as his pass catchers, just not really sure who I want to trust here. So if you're playing Lamar, probably just play him by himself. And then the running backs, we saw Gus Edwards have that big 4th quarter, but Kenneth Dixon actually outsnapped him. So if I'm taking a chance between one of those 2, I'll give the edge to Dixon, especially since he's $600 cheaper. And then for the Chargers, it sounds like Gordon's going to play. It sounds like if last week's was a playoff game that he would have suited up. So kind of expecting him to play. But we could still see a big role from Eckler. So kind of a situation that I want to avoid, which is another reason why we like Henry so much in this small 2-game slate. Do you think you can go back to Keenan Allen if he's healthy? And if he's not, then you load up on the 2 Williams brothers.
Yeah, here's the thing with this slate is there's not a lot of expensive players. So people will save money at a lot of different spots and naturally have money left over for Gordon and or Keenan Allen. So Chop, how do we handle that? Is there a way to leverage that? Because everyone's going to have them because the money's available. Where do you come out on these 2 guys?
Yeah, I'm not this is really similar to a showdown slate where, money doesn't matter. In fact, leaving as much on the table as you can without really doing a ton of damage to your team is actually going to be better for tournaments. So, I'm looking at it like I don't really – in a vacuum, I don't think Keenan Allen has any better of a chance to succeed this week than Corey Davis does, or somebody like that. Maybe I could find some other guys too. So I don't have to spend up on Keenan. I can go somewhere else and try to be a little bit different. But yeah, this is an ugly two-gamer right here. So I would say I don't need to spend up because I'm looking at the Chargers where you want to spend up, and I don't necessarily like them at all. In fact, I like Baltimore players a little bit better in this game. So I'll have the Lamar Jackson. I'll have hey man, I'll take a shot on since it's a two-gamer, we can take a chance on John Brown or somebody or even Willie Snead's drawing targets. Like I said, I can leave a couple grand on the table. These are two games, man. I may have faded both of these games 100% outside of Derrick Henry if it wasn't just a two-game slate and that's all we had to choose. If this was on the main slate, I may fade both these games. So they're not appealing, but just strategically, I can't pinpoint anybody that looks good to play in this game. So I'll just go with the strategy aspect, which is let's leave money on the table. Let's take different guys. If we don't feel great about Keenan Allen and Melvin Gordon, let's stay away from them. Like Derek said, I have no problems with Kenneth Dixon in this thing, or even try Deion Lewis on the others. Just be a little bit different. Like last week on that two-gamer, if you would have just been a tad bit different, you could have won all the money because a lot of it is pretty self-explanatory. So just be a little bit different. Let's play Corey Davis instead of Keenan Allen, and maybe that's the difference maker.
Yeah, even among the Williamses, Mike Williams coming off that big game will be a popular target, and Tyrell Williams had 12 targets in that game. So it's not like he didn't do anything. He just didn't score 3 touchdowns. So, I like that pivot right there, and a lot of people are going to go back to Mike Williams. So an interesting slate. I'm with you guys. Not too much to get excited about here. I'll throw a few entries in. That Ravens-Chargers game will be fun to watch as a football fan. A lot on the line there. But DFS, I wouldn't go crazy with this tournament. Now, let's move on to the main slate. And again, we got big tournaments everywhere. Obviously, the Millionaire Maker on DraftKings, the $1 Million on Yahoo with some overlay. So let's get started. First game here, guys. Giants and Indy. And two teams coming off of totally different games last week. I mean, Indy pitches a shutout at home, Chop, against your surging Cowboys. So I don't know what happened there, but Indy obviously playing well. The Giants, on the other hand, not so much. Did not look good in that game against Tennessee. So what do we do here? Because we have a Marlon Mack huge game. I think people are going to look at him. We have Saquon Barkley coming off a dud. What do we do with this game, Chop, Giants and Colts?
This is a good game. I like this game for DFS purposes. I'll start off with the Giants. I guess we don't know about Odell just yet. I wouldn't be surprised if they shut him down or if he shuts himself down, really. I think he's contemplating shutting himself down here. So kind of like a college football player coming out for the draft. Why play in the bowl game when it's meaningless and you're about to get paid? I think that's where Odell's at. So we'll see how that plays out. If he sits, I'll go to Sterling Shepard. I think that's more of a way you can beat Indianapolis' secondary is the shorter passes anyway. So that's more of Sterling's thing. They really limit those big plays. So Odell wouldn't have been high on my radar anyway. But Saquon, man, I'm really anxious to play Barkley on the inside the dome on the turf. I just think that little extra gear he's going to have on this surface is going to be really good for him. So I like Saquon in this game quite a bit to bounce back from that dud last week. And on the flip side, I think you can play all these Colts. I think being at home like this, Hilton's back in play, Ebron's in play. Of course, Marlon Mack and Andrew Luck is an exceptional option this week to get back on track to those 3+ passing touchdowns. I've already had some debates on Twitter this morning with Davis Maddock about some of these running backs, and then he's dogging Andrew Luck and all this other stuff. Listen, Andrew Luck's been exceptional this year, man, considering that he's just come off an arm surgery that probably would have ended a lot of guys' career. And he's really, really good. So I could definitely see Andrew Luck being one of the top scorers at the end of this week.
Yeah, and we get to the point in the season now you want to be looking at who has something to play for, who doesn't. You mentioned it with Beckham, makes sense for them to sit him. Barkley, while we're here, $7,900. That price came down $1,500. So I'm with you. I like Barkley a lot here. But the Colts, right now, on the outside looking in, sitting at the 7th seed in the AFC with Baltimore ahead of them. So, the 2 games back of Houston, they need to win probably both of these games. So I really like going back to the Colts as well here. Luck, Hilton, and Ebron, even after that dud. Noto, where are you going here? Barkley, obviously got to be a guy you're looking at, but Colts, are you as excited about them as Chop and I seem to be?
Yeah, definitely an interesting game to target. I think it'll be lower owned just because of the fact that they shut out Dallas in the same stadium last week. Hopefully that'll keep ownership down for the Giants, but love Saquon Barkley at the discount. It was a case of the drops for the Giants last week. Saquon and Shepard caught 6 of 19 targets, and then Ebron dropped a touchdown for the Colts. I mean, it was just a frustrating week for sure. But, yeah, I like Barkley to bounce back, especially on this fast track. And then depending on what Odell does, I don't mind going back to Shepard at 4,800. For number one wide receiver in a game where they're going to be trailing, certainly don't mind that. And it's the usual suspects for the Colts, like Hilton indoors. I like Ebron to bounce back a little bit. And then Marlon Mack, he's had 82% of the running back carries over the last 2 weeks. He's received every carry inside the 10-yard line during that stretch. I believe he's had 5 of them. And he's been a touchdown machine in a game where they're, big favorites at home against the Giants, who have given up the third most fantasy points to running backs. I think he's a really strong play at 5,500.
Yeah, I like him a lot. And he's just getting so much work here. We love home favorites here. And pricing-wise on Barkley, Yahoo, his price went up. So you may get lower ownership there. I think the DraftKings price will stand out to people, and he'll be popular over there. But maybe not so much on Yahoo. Elliott cheaper, Nick Chubb, Kamara, Mixon, some guys that are cheaper than Barkley. So maybe you get an edge over there playing him while other people won't. They might think he's too expensive. All right, next game, guys. Houston and Philly. Old Nick Foles back in our life here, Derek. So 4,600 on DraftKings this week. Interest level in Nick Foles.
It's going to depend on what value opens up with the other positions. I don't think he's a bad play at the price point by any means, especially since his game's in Philly. And, he's had some big games over the last 2 seasons with the Eagles, obviously led him to the Super Bowl. And if you want to play Nick Foles, you can pair him up with Alshon. Over the last 2 seasons, he has a 75% completion rate when throwing to Alshon, averaging 11 yards per target, 8% touchdown rate. So those two are definitely an interesting stack here. Don't mind going to Ertz, 5,900. That's the cheapest we've seen him in quite some time. We've been targeting tight ends against Houston pretty much all season. So maybe do a little double stack there with Foles, Ertz, and Alshon. And then for Houston, pretty much the same characters as always. We like DeAndre Hopkins quite a bit. He is expensive. I am going to probably prioritize getting those expensive running backs into my lineups this week, as I pretty much do every week. But I do think Hopkins is viable in tournaments. And, yeah, not really sure I want to target the running backs unless Miller ends up being out. Then Alfred Blue could become a pretty intriguing spot at 4,500.
Yeah, I really like this game too. I mean, it's a close spread, sitting at about 2. Nice total at 45 here. Chop, where are you coming out on this one? Both teams, Philadelphia still very much alive for the division title here, and they're another team sitting outside looking in right now. Houston can kind of put this baby to bed with a win. So this got to be a game that we're excited about.
At Baker's, no matter where you order free pickup, you get the same great deals as you'd get in store. So you can save when you order during band practice or at the dog park or wherever. Start your cart with the Baker's app and save from wherever today. Baker's, fresh for everyone. $35 order minimum. Restrictions may apply. Subject to availability.
Choose from a great selection of digital coupons and use them up to 5 times in one transaction. Check our app for details. Baker's, fresh for everyone.
Yeah, it means a lot for both teams, so it's super interesting there. And but I just don't know what to make of Philadelphia or Houston for that matter, as far as either one. I mean, man, Philadelphia, are they really going to rebound now and come back and make a run at the playoffs? I guess this game will tell us a lot of what we need to know. But Zach Ertz is be my number one priority in this game, and it'd be hard for me not to, load up on Ertz as my number one tight end this week. I've been targeting Houston with tight ends for a while now. Sometimes it's worked, sometimes it hasn't, but now we get to get an actual number one guy in there we can play. So I really like Ertz a lot. What was it? Who was it? Corey Clement's out now. Smallwood, I don't expect to have a huge role. So I think Josh Adams, if we can get out a lead here for Philadelphia, Josh Adams can have a big game here. So he's on my radar. And on the flip side, we want to target this Eagles secondary because it's been so bad. But man, they really took it to the Rams the other night on Sunday Night Football. So my thought would be, can they pressure Deshaun Watson the same way they did Goff and create that kind of havoc for him? I think the big difference here is that Deshaun Watson is actually good and Jared Goff is actually overrated. So I think Watson can handle the pressure.
Careful now.
You're
gonna make some people mad here, Chop.
I love it. The show is just starting. I'm about to get on all of them. I'm going to get on Warren Sharp and Davis Matt. All of them are going down here. But I mean, if he could stand in there, buy a little time and get the ball, like Dak Prescott showed that 2 weeks ago, just buy a little bit of time to get your receiver out there against that secondary, and you can burn them. So I think he can buy a little bit of time, and we can get Hopkins on in a big game here. We'll see if QT plays or if Lamar Miller plays, but I'm probably not too interested in Alfred Blue or Foreman or Demaryius Thomas anyway. So it's Deshaun and Hopkins on one side. On the other side, Foles, Adams, Ertz, and I'll sprinkle in a little Alshon Jeffrey.
Yeah, I like the Adams call. I mean, found the end zone last game. 44 on DraftKings is fair, but the price really stands out on Yahoo. It's $13. So, a home favorite here, a team that you can definitely play the running back against Houston. They've been decent against the run, but, I like the spot for Adams as well. All right, moving on to our next game here, Jacksonville and Miami. Boy, oh boy, this is – I mean, I don't know what else we can say about the Jags. Derek, we'll save you for last year. You want to talk about your team. Miami, Chop, I guess they put up a fight in Minnesota for a minute. It looked like they were going to fight their way back into the game, and then no. So the problem here is we want to attack Miami with running backs, but Jacksonville doesn't really want to seem to play Leonard Fournette a full complement of snaps. So is this just a fade? What are we doing with this game, Chop?
I'm really disappointed that we have a Jacksonville homer in our midst, and he didn't get us the news that Leonard Fournette was not going to play in the second half.
I blame Dan.
This is just very disappointing. Yeah, he was my Achilles heel this week. On Yahoo, I did 9 of my 10 teams had Fournette. I just loved him. Played him all on both the other sites also quite a bit, way too heavy. I had no idea that their game plan was actually to rest or to get the David Williams or whoever that was looks in the second half. I had no idea that was coming. So, man, that was brutal. But you got to bounce back. And with that being said, I'm out. I'm out on them. There's no way I could go back to Fournette or any of these guys after that debacle. So I don't want any piece of Jacksonville in this game. On the flip side, I think the guy I'm looking at most is Kalen Ballage. If you can break a 75-yarder on Minnesota, you can probably put up a big play on Jacksonville's defense, which is absolutely shutting it down right now and has no desire to play. That was evident by what Derrick Henry did to him. Kalen Ballage is actually pretty talented. He's certainly more talented than Frank Gore at this point in his career. And they look like they're willing to give him carries over Kenyon Drake. I think Drake remains in the same role, and Ballage gets a big workload. So I'm about the Kalen Ballage here. I don't know if I could trust Kenny Stills or Parker or Amendola. The passing game is not very interesting. I think Ballage is the place I'm going here.
Yeah, he's intriguing. It's still a little nerve-wracking clicking that button. I mean, but he's cheap enough. $37 on DraftKings, just $13 on Yahoo. So, Derek, thoughts on Ballage, and then what the hell is going on with your Jaguars?
Yeah, it's bad. Apologies to anybody that read the expert survey. My favorite correlation play was Fournette to the Jags D. Yeah, that was a bad decision on my part. But I don't want to trust anyone from the Jaguars this week or any other week moving forward. And it's just a good reminder that we probably shouldn't be playing too many guys from teams with nothing to play for. As for Miami, I think Ballage is viable. Drake only had 1 carry last week, even with Frank Gore missing most of that game. So Ballage is definitely the guy you want to look at here. Only $3,700. I think you can play him in all formats. Just depends on what roster construction you want to go with. But I think he's one of the better values at running back this week.
All right, moving on. Next game, Green Bay and the Jets. So the big story here is Aaron Rodgers. Is he going to go or not? There's word out he may not play. He's trying to play. Joe Philbin says football players should play football games. But the line is kind of adjusting where, I don't think Vegas is expecting him to play. So obviously that's the big domino here in this game, Derek. But tough to get excited about my team either. I mean, they just look awful. Aaron Jones now hurt. So interest level, without Rodgers has got to be nil. Let's say he's in there. Do we just go back to Devontae Adams and call it quits? And then on the Jets side, I think Elijah McGuire is intriguing here. Robbie Anderson. I think there's some pieces here with the Jets I'm going to have some interest in against this Green Bay defense.
Yeah, for Green Bay, pretty simple. If Rodgers is active, then I will be playing Devontae Adams quite a bit. Jets have been burned by number one receivers all year, including DeAndre Hopkins last week. And then even though Jamal Williams will probably get the start for Aaron Jones if he ends up being out, I don't really want to chase those points. 5,400 is kind of expensive. And then for the Jets, Eli McGuire, I think he's interesting. Saw most of the snaps last week with Crowell out. Ended up with 71 yards and a touchdown. This is a much better matchup at home against a beatable Green Bay defense. And, yeah, he's still pretty cheap. He's only 4,700, so don't mind taking a shot on him. And then Robbie Anderson starting to come alive, 76 yards and a touchdown against the Bills and Tre'Davious White. And then he had 96 and a touchdown against Houston. Best matchup of the three against Green Bay. So I think you can certainly go right back to the well with Robbie Anderson. 4,500, I'm not sure why his price didn't come up. So I think he'll probably be one of the more popular receivers targets this week.
Yeah, I'm on board both those guys. McGuire 16 on Yahoo and Robbie Anderson just 15. We'll see what happens with Enunwa. He's minimum priced. So a lot of intriguing options here. Chop, thoughts here, Packers and Jets.
Yeah, similar stuff. If Rodgers is active, I can go to Adams. If he's not, then I have a hard time trusting anybody in this offense right now. Man, okay, I have a question for the running backs don't matter crowd. I know you guys aren't in that crowd, but if they're listening, and I know they are, how come we say free Aaron Jones? Free Aaron Jones. If that must mean you think Aaron Jones is that much better than Jamal Williams. But if running backs don't matter and the stats point towards Pittsburgh being, this wasteland of running backs to where anybody can step in and play, then why would there be a need to free Aaron Jones? There's no need. You don't need to order the code red if you already told you guys to protect, the guy that's, from the freaking movie with Jack Nicholson. Like there's no need to free Aaron Jones if all running backs are equal anyway. So Jamal Williams is obviously the inferior running back. I don't want any part of that backfield. I don't want any part of this team without Aaron Rodgers. In fact, I'm on the look here. I'm on the lookout for Green Bay being one of the teams that absolutely hits the tank this week. And that means that the Jets may actually just put up big points on that defense. If that defense quits like Jacksonville looks like they've quit, I'm all over the Jets here, and I'm on none of the Packers. The Jets being, like you said, Robbie Anderson, Elijah McGuire look extra, extra special with those salaries. You could even play Sam Darnold this week, and I'm not even a Sam Darnold fan. Chris Herndon was your number one tight end last week on that little 2-game slate, so why not? We go back to that one too. So I'm all over the Jets here because I think Green Bay is in serious shutdown mode.
Yeah, agreed. If it's Kaiser, don't get cute with that. I mean, Darnold's $100 more. Nick Foles is cheaper. Do not play Deshaun Kaiser. Let me just put that out there. All right, let's move on, guys. Cincinnati and Cleveland. I'm not going to make a Chubb joke here, but I'm getting a little bit of a Chubb here, Chop. Wanting to play some Nick Chubb against the Bengals.
Oh man, I tell you what, I got to bust out my season-long update already because Nick Chubb's on that team.
Uh-oh.
I don't know how I've done it, but I've somehow rallied to win 3 straight, and I'm in the championship game of the toilet bowl, which means, the loser's bracket. I get a little bit extra cash at the end if I pull a win. I don't know how I did it, but I'm in the championship. So I got something going for me here, and it's a lot of it's due to Nick Chubb here, who I picked up on the waivers halfway through the season.
Messing up your draft pick.
Oh, that's already solidified. I think the regular season standings were the ones that did that. So
okay.
That's
Gotcha.
a done deal. That's a done. And I didn't even try to do it. I was intentionally not trying to. So here's I'll get into this. This is good. We got time. I've been telling these guys for years, forget this stupid toilet bowl thing. Why are we giving extra money to a loser? Let's give that money to the winner of this. Like all this, that's what I've been telling them for years. But obviously there's a couple of hard heads in there. No, it's good. It's good. Keeps everybody active. It's garbage, right? I don't even like it. But I'm in it this week. So what I'm going to do and what I've resisted doing the last few weeks is I'm going to go hit the waiver wires this week because I'm in the toilet bowl and I got a chance to make a little money. So I'm going to cock block all these guys, take all the good players, and I'm going to make them think about this stupid rule of the toilet bowl because otherwise I wouldn't even be worried about waiver wires right now. But I'm going to take all these good players, especially with all these injuries this week, and I'm going to make them really do a double take on this stupid toilet bowl rule. But I'm in the championship of the toilet bowl. So
Very nice. Very nice.
But I mean,
it's a good topic because I see people out there, don't be picking up players off the waiver wire if you're not in it. But yet all these leagues have these consolation brackets. What are you just supposed to sit back and play the guys that you're stuck with? Like, hell no, I'm with you. I'm going to get out there and I'm going to hit that waiver wire. So I agree. We have a league where they want to spread the money out pretty much to everybody. Like, let's give ninth place half of his money back and seventh can win. Like, no, let's pay money to like first, second, maybe third, and then call it quits. We don't need to be paying out everybody in the damn league. So, yeah, Chop, you go hit that waiver wire with pride, man.
I got him queued up, baby. I'm ready for it. But I like Nick Chubb. I mean, obviously, this is a great spot for him. For Mayfield, Njoku, although I don't know if I could trust that guy anymore. He really puts up some duds, man. And these guys are all in play for Cleveland. They're at home. Cincinnati, not a good defense at all. We all know that. So the interesting part is on the flip side there for Cincinnati. Mixon is obviously a good play, but with now Tyler Boyd being out and probably shut down for the year, no A.J. Green, it's going to leave a lot on the plate for somebody. I've never been a John Ross fan, but my gosh, he has nobody to compete with him for the lion's share of these yards here, which Cody Core, Alex Erickson, Auden Tate, I don't even know who these guys are. I'm a college guy, and I think Alex Erickson was a Wisconsin guy.
Oh, yeah, that one I know because that's my team. But, yeah, outside of that, these other guys are – I mean, oof. So, I mean, I think John Ross, man, if he was ever worth a first-round pick that they spent on him, you have no competition now. This is your week to step these last 2 weeks, but especially this week with a pretty weak team going against you. This is his time to step up. So maybe John Ross is a good salary saver this week, but I definitely like that Cleveland side. Yeah, I'm with you. You can play almost all the Cleveland Browns. In Nick Chubb's spot, Derek, it kind of feels like the same spot that Joe Mixon was in last week. Nice home favorite, ideal matchup, nice mid-range price where he's not priced with the studs, but he has the workload and the upside to get you there. So he's my favorite running back on the week. Where do you come out of Nick Chubb and the rest of Cleveland and Cincinnati?
Oh, yeah, all in on Chubb this week, all in on all the Chubb jokes as well. We should get hashtag Chubb for Chubb trending on Twitter.
Damn.
And just get it going. I mean, 7,300 for a guy that could see 25-plus touches against the Bengals. Yeah, sign me up. He had 28 carries and 28 fantasy points in the same matchup in Cincinnati a few weeks back. So he is going to be one of my top running backs as well. Mixon, I mean, I like him. He's had 53 carries, 10 targets over the last 2 weeks. They're just feeding him the ball, but I worry that, with nothing to play for, why kind of push him? Kind of the same thing with Leonard Fournette last week. I'm not saying that he's going to come out and get 10 touches or anything, but it does worry me a little bit, especially if Boyd's not going to play. The Browns could, sell out to stop Mixon a little bit. Depending on if Denzel Ward plays, then I'll probably go maybe Erickson over John Ross just because he's a little cheaper, and Ross might draw that shadow coverage a little bit, but just going to wait and see on that. Ward's missed the last couple games. So, for me, it's just Browns defense with Chubb, and that's about it. Maybe a flyer or two on Njoku because Cincinnati does struggle against the tight end quite a bit.
Eventually a tight end has to do something. It wasn't last week. Maybe we can get one this week. All right, let's wrap up part one here. Again, we're going to cut it at this game. We'll come back. We'll finish the rest of the games in part two, which you can find tomorrow on RotoGrinders.com. But let's go to Tampa Bay and Dallas. And Derek, Chop wanted to bust your balls about being a Jacksonville homer and getting some info. Well, we have a Dallas insider, and he as sure as hell didn't tell us that team was going to get shut out last week because I had a lot of Zeke Elliott, Chop, that didn't work out. So we'll save you for last year to talk about your team. But, Derek, this is an intriguing game. I mean, Dallas going back home, I expect them to respond here to put a big number on the board against this Tampa Bay defense. The question is the Bucs. What do we do with them coming off a tough game in Baltimore? Is that an offense you have faith in here against Dallas?
I don't know about the Bucs. Don't really want to trust them. I know, it's indoors, pretty good stadium, but Dallas' defense has been tough. I know they got shut out last week, but I mean their defense was decent on the road, and they've been really good at home. So I don't know if I want to play Winston. Obviously, don't trust either running back there in Tampa. Maybe take a shot on Mike Evans in tournaments. If Deshaun's out, maybe go back to Chris Godwin as a low-owned play, but for me, Zeke's going to be the guy to own in this game. And the only stat that I really took away from last week is that he scored 18 fantasy points in a game where the Cowboys had 0 points. That's pretty incredible. I think he's going to bounce back in a big way. I think he's worth that $9K price point. And, we've talked about a few of these running backs that are priced up. I really think it's a good week to just fit those studs in at running back and then kind of just look to find some value at receiver, quarterback, whatever it may be, because you're going to need those points. We're getting to the point of the season where the scores are coming down a little bit, and you just need those 20-plus points from each of your running back positions. So for me, it's just going to be Zeke. Maybe take a shot on Cooper as a leverage play in tournaments. He's been solid all year. Just worry about game flow a little bit when it comes to Amari.
All right, Chop, as the president of the Running Backs Do Matter fan club, I'm going to put you to the test here. So DraftKings, there's a big discrepancy in pricing on Barkley and Elliott, $1,100 difference. But when we go to our friends at Yahoo, your 2 running backs here that you like are the same exact price at $36. So you have to pick one. Is it Barkley? Is it Elliott?
Well, I'm not gonna take the easy way out and not give you an answer, but I will say this: it's an easy decision if we get to Sunday morning and we find out that Zach Martin is out again for the Cowboys. It's a huge blow, and we probably should have foreseen the Cowboys having some issues, missing 2/5 of their and probably the 2 best starters they have on the offensive line. And then the third best is a guy who's taking painkillers and he's wearing a knee brace on his elbow every game now. So they're really beat up. So if Zach Martin is out, it's easily Barkley. If Zach Martin seems to be healthy, then I think I could lean Elliott there, and I think I could lean with Elliott there. So that's kind of the way I see. But as far as getting shut out, I think we kind of downplayed missing linemen like that and how big they can be. So we'll have to see how healthy this offensive line is. It all revolves around that offensive line. So that's where I stand on that. Elliott's a fine play. Cooper probably gets loose against this secondary. That's a good one. I don't know if everybody, but Gallup seems to be a very popular topic these days because of the market share of air yards, which he never catches. But it's there. It's high up there. He's on the buy low model all the time. He's always going to be a buy low because he just never steps up and does anything. But he's there. Prescott on the flip side, Tampa Bay. I expect Tampa Bay to actually be able to score some points in this game on Dallas. So I think we could look at Mike Evans or even Chris Godwin. We can go back to Chris Godwin now. I assume Deshaun Jackson's going to be out for the year. So I'm not chasing the Peyton Barber points. I have no interest in that. But I do have a quick question for you guys. It could be a yes or no answer. Okay?
Fire away.
One guy's a Jacksonville fan. One guy's a Green Bay fan. Doesn't look like your teams are going to make the playoffs this year.
Well, that's a hell of an observation, Chop. Well done.
Okay, but my question would be, right now, could I tempt you with giving away a mid to late first round pick right now for you to reverse your records and be in the playoffs?
I'm going to say no, just because I don't think my team's very good. So I'm going to give up a first-round pick, and then we're going to get throttled by New Orleans.
Well, let's assume that your team is actually halfway decent and showing signs of life, and that's the reason why they're going to make the playoffs.
Then yes, I'm a play for now kind of guy.
Okay.
Then worry about the future. So yes, put me in the playoffs.
Derek?
Yeah, as a Jaguars fan, I can't assume that my team's halfway decent. That's just not – it doesn't process in my mind. So I'll say no just because, I don't know. I mean,
Let's pretend you were last year's Jaguars. Now answer the question.
I guess so.
Okay.
You never know what's going to happen in the future. So might as well.
Okay, there you go. I appreciate that honest feedback, guys. It just –
let's ask you. Does Dallas win the NFC East here?
Yeah, I think they do. It's just, they didn't look good last week, but they're in such an advantageous position to win that division that I think eventually they nail it down. So I think they win it. And as a guy who's always kind of like not been a super big fan of tanking and putting your fan base through that for 6 or 7 years, to give up a first-round pick and that be pretty much the defining reason why this team is probably going to make the playoffs feels pretty good, man. So I'm pretty happy with the result of the Amari Cooper trade. That's kind of where I was going with that. So that's good stuff, man. That's a perfect segue into part 2.
Yep, and just looking ahead, Dallas is at New York next week to play the Giants, and Philadelphia, where are they on my schedule? They are at Washington. So pretty sure your Cowboys hold the tiebreaker. So they went out at home against Tampa at the Giants, 2 winnable games. They should be taking that division. So sitting pretty, controlling their own destiny. And that will wrap us up here for part 1, guys. We appreciate you tuning in as always. We'll be back again tomorrow with part 2 with the rest of the 1 o'clock games, 4 o'clock games, Sunday night, Monday night football, and we'll answer some user questions. Guys, anything you want to get off your chest? Any final thoughts here before we transition over to part 2? Chop.
No, but I'll just say that when you come back for part 2, we're going to break down some games, answer some questions. Then I just got a couple of simple questions for you guys I'm going to throw out there this week.
All right, Santa Chop, bring in the heat. No, what do you got here to wrap us up?
Just gonna, re-emphasize to get in there on Yahoo. I mean, it's the best tournament out there in DFS right now. 250K guaranteed overlay. No reason not to max enter that thing this week.
Yes, support them. That's more competition in our industry, and competition makes everybody better, makes them step their game up. So glad to see Yahoo throwing some money out there, the best tournament out there. Make sure you're getting in that. For Head Chopper, for Notorious, I am Beer saying salut. Best of luck here in Week 16. But again, we're not done. We're coming right back with part 2. So come on back, check us out. We're out of here, guys.